My name is Zach Arnold. I'm a Hollywood film and television editor, a documentary director, father of two, and creator of Optimize Yourself. Since beginning my career, I have battled attention issues, anxiety, and creative burnout more times than I can keep track of. Back in 2005, after almost losing the battle with suicidal depression, I decided that I no longer wanted to sacrifice myself for the sake of my career. I was done barely surviving. I wanted to thrive. Since then, I have obsessively searched for every possible way to optimize my own creative performance. My journey is far from complete, but I have now made it my mission to shorten your learning curve so you can forge your own path to greatness without having to sacrifice balance in the process. Now it's time to start designing the optimized version of you. Hello, and welcome to episode number 26 of the Optimize Yourself podcast. If you're a first-time listener, then I'm grateful to have you with me, and I appreciate you prioritizing this time in your day to focus on creating just a little work-life balance and sanity for yourself despite this crazy world that we live in. If you enjoyed today's interview and it inspires you to take positive action in your life, I invite you to subscribe to this podcast in iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or whatever app you prefer, because I have tons of great guests, giveaways, and free training coming your way on a weekly basis. Just visit optimizeyourself.me/subscribe to make sure that you don't miss future episodes and to access our index of past episodes. With the holiday season officially upon us, it is easy to get swept up in the madness, but in order to truly enjoy this time of year, I think that it's important to focus on your mental health just so you avoid going completely crazy. So for the next few episodes, I have several great interviews to help you optimize how you approach your mental health, and this will work far beyond just the holidays. This week's episode is the first of 3 in this mental health series that will help you better understand how to be mindful in the present moment. And don't miss the next couple of episodes that are coming up as well, because they're going to dive much deeper into understanding how your brain works on a much deeper level, especially if you experience depression and anxiety, and also what you can do about it. Now, mindfulness is a buzzword that you see on the internet all of the time nowadays. But what does the term mindfulness actually mean? And do you need to wear sandals, eat organic hemp granola, and chant to the stars while somebody balances your chakras to authentically practice mindfulness? Well, luckily, mindfulness requires nothing more than a willingness to hit the pause button on your life for just a few minutes a day and focus on the present moment. And in doing so, it is scientifically proven to help you enhance focus and concentration, decrease anxiety, better manage your stress, and also improve your cognitive function. Now, that's not bad for literally doing next to nothing for just a few minutes a day, right? In this episode, which is one of my favorite early interviews from my fitness and post days, I dive deep into the topic of mindfulness with Dr. Swati Desai, a psychotherapist and a mindfulness and meditation expert. We discuss the benefits of developing a regular practice and how you can easily apply it to your own daily life. And for those of you who might be just a little bit skeptical, we also chat about the neuroscience behind mindfulness and meditation so you can understand how it's literally reshaping and rewiring your brain and your neural pathways to help you become happier, more relaxed, and a more focused human being. Balancing yourself is a fundamental component of the Optimize Yourself program, and I hope that this episode helps you find just a little bit of balance in your own crazy life. Now, if this interview inspires you to take some action, I then invite you to download my ultimate guide to optimizing your creativity, which contains plenty of simple action steps that you can take right away to prioritize your well-being and start sleeping better, eating better, and managing your stress like a Zen monk, because you can't be creative if you are constantly burned out. To download this guide after you listen to this episode, all you have to do is visit optimizeyourself.me/ultimate guide, and I will send it to your inbox immediately. Before we get to our interview, though, I just want to take a quick second to remind you that this is your very last week to participate in my giveaway for a TopoMat human charger device, a 1-hour private coaching session with me, or a 1-month supply of my new favorite cognitive enhancement supplement, Qualia. The contest ends December 1st, and all that it requires is for you to take 2 minutes to leave an honest review for this podcast in iTunes. To learn more, to get directions, and to participate, all you have to do is visit optimizeyourself.me/win. And now, without further ado, after a brief break to recognize our sponsors, my interview with Swati Desai. To access the show notes for this episode, please visit optimizeyourself.me/episode 26. This episode is made possible by ErgoDriven, the makers of the Topo Mat and Topo Mini, my number one recommendations for anybody interested in moving more at their height adjustable workstation. Listen, standing desks are only great if you're standing well. Otherwise, you're constantly fighting fatigue and chronic pain. Not like any other anti-fatigue mat, the Topo is scientifically proven to help you move more throughout the day, which helps reduce discomfort and also increase your focus and productivity. And they're really fun and a great conversation starter too. To learn more, visit optimizeyourself.me/topo. That's TOPO. This episode is made possible by the Human Charger, a revolutionary new light therapy device made specifically for people who spend long days in the dark and don't get enough sunlight, i.e., you and me. Simply put in the earbuds for 12 minutes a day to receive your daily recommended dosage of UV-free white light. Doing so can drastically increase your energy, improve your mood, and increase mental alertness and focus. This device has literally changed my life, and I use it every morning without fail. To learn more, visit optimizeyourself.me/humancharger, and you can use the code OPTIMIZE to get 20% off your order. Thank you for being on the show, Swati. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So just a little bit of background so people understand how you and I know each other. I've been very candid about my history just with different forms of mental illness and the struggles that I've gone through in this industry for the last 10 or 12 years. And you are actually the very first person that I found off of Google, of all places, about 10 years ago when I was at my deepest and darkest point. And I said that I need to find a way out of this or I'm not going to survive. And I just went online and tried to find solutions. And that was where I'd found the Akasha Center and specifically found you. So you were the beginning for me. Like when I look at the deep dark hole, when I was at the bottom of the deep dark hole, you were the very first person that I saw. So you are where it all started for me.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's been a long journey to get out of that deep dark hole, and I can continue to fight it every single day, as do many of the people in our industry, and I'm sure you see a lot of people in the film industry because you're out in Santa Monica, so I would guess that's a fair portion of your business, and you understand how stressful this industry is.
Absolutely.
But what I really want to focus on today is the idea of mindfulness and the practice of meditation, because there were a lot of different things that you taught me, but the one that really stuck was the idea of mindfulness and the different forms of meditation. So just walk me through a little bit of your background in general, and then also specifically in meditation.
Okay. As you know, I've been working at Akasha Center as a psychotherapist for over 10 years. And my practice has always been around the practice of mindfulness and meditations. My background, I come from India. I came to this country about 30 years ago. And where I grew up, meditation was part of the teachings or the philosophy of meditation, and non-attachment was part of my upbringing. But then I was very attracted to the Buddhist form of meditation, which is mindfulness. And I did trainings in that. And eventually I started using it in my psychotherapy practice. And I did workshops, and I also ran ongoing 2 weekly groups in Akasha for people such as yourself and others who wanted to deal with their stress, anxiety, and other difficult emotions that we all deal with in life. So that is my personal background in meditation. The way, in fact, I really found the power of meditation was through my own personal experience of when I was going through a crisis. And when I attended certain retreats in India and did certain types of meditations, I found it to be so powerful that I decided I wanted to use it in my psychotherapy practice. That's how it started for me. Since that time, I have been involved in meditation and other meditation communities that I belong to, as well as eventually then for last few months, I have been developing an app and website to create a global community of meditators, to connect people virtually with each other, because in meditation, doing it together has a different kind of a power. And that's what I've been working on for last almost 1 year or so.
Well, I can tell you that I definitely want to learn more about that, and we'll talk about that later in the show, because that idea I think is fascinating. Because the only hurdle that I would always be up against when I wanted to go to your groups is, well, I'm gonna have to be stuck on the 405 for an hour, and that's gonna pretty much negate any effect that I'm gonna have from doing mindful meditation.
Right.
But knowing that this is something that can be done worldwide, kind of the way that all these fitness programs are cropping up online and yoga programs to bring meditation into that world, I think is brilliant. We'll go into that a little bit more later into the specifics.
Okay.
But what I want to do is really start from square one, because this program, Fitness in Post, everybody hears the word fitness and they think exercise. They think, oh, I'm jumping up and down and I'm doing push-ups and pull-ups and doing this crazy P90X stuff. But what I'm really trying to show is that I take a very well-rounded approach to wellness, and meditation and mindfulness meditation are a big part of that. So just pretend that the people listening right now have no idea what mindfulness meditation is, and just kind of walk me through the basics.
Okay. So when you talk about mindfulness, there are two aspects to mindfulness practice. One aspect is to actually formally learn to do the meditations. You sit formally. There are ways to meditate, and you actually learn that. That's one aspect of mindfulness. The second aspect of mindfulness is the daily habit of being mindful. So let me first describe what the word mindfulness means. Just like it means awareness in English, does it just mean awareness? It's a special type of awareness. It's an awareness where it's moment by moment. You are totally and completely aware of whatever is going on without judgment and simply observing. So what you are doing is you are learning to observe your body as well as your mind. You are becoming a non-judgment observer of yourself. When I say the daily practice of mindfulness, what it would mean is take any couple of activities you do on a daily level and think about, do you pay total non-judgmental observation type of attention to it or not? And my guess is probably not. For example, we take a shower every day. But when we are taking a shower, we are also doing all our lists, to-do lists, and these kinds of things. Every day we eat. When we eat, a lot of times we also multitask. A lot of times we don't even know what we are eating. Sometimes we eat because we are stressed out and we just want to feel good. So we don't really pay attention to what we are eating or the experience of shower. I'm taking these two examples because these are daily activities where it's really easy to spend just a minute or two doing it completely mindfully.
If somebody says, all right, well, I want to try this, I don't really understand what it is, how do I practice mindfulness meditation while I'm taking a shower?
Yeah. So when you're taking a shower, I wouldn't really call it a meditation. As I said, meditation would be a formal practice of sitting and doing certain types of meditation. So let's leave the meditation part out for the time being. The second aspect, as I said, is to do activities mindfully. So for example, let's say you are taking a shower. Think about the 5 senses we all have. We have our eyesight, we have our touch, we have the smell, we have the taste. And if you pay attention to all these different senses while you're taking a shower, that would be a mindfulness exercise. For example, when the water comes, you pay attention to the way the water drops look like. The 5th sense, I think I forgot to say, the 5th sense is the sound. So you pay attention to the sound of the shower. You pay attention to the way it feels like on your shoulders or on your back. You pay attention to how it smells like. And taste, I don't mean to say that actually taste the shower, but while you are taking the shower, how your taste buds are working. If you pay attention to all these 5 senses without judgment. Whenever a judgment comes, such as, oh my God, it's too hot, or oh my God, I just want to get out, or it's taking too long, or it feels good, I wish it wasn't ending. Whatever judgments come, you just observe those judgments. You don't have to immediately act out, but you learn to simply observe moment by moment whatever is going on with your body and with your mind. If you do it in the shower just for a few minutes every day, that will be a mindfulness exercise.
So then the big question that I know I'm thinking and that my audience is thinking is why? Why would I do that, and what can it help develop, and what are the benefits of developing mindfulness?
Okay, that's a great question. It's actually quite amazing. It's a very simple idea. Be mindful, meaning be there with that thing totally and completely. Okay. So what's the advantage? Why would I want to do that? Why would I want to develop this practice? First of all, how many times in your life are you with something totally and completely? The way our lives go with technology and with our schedules, we are not with whatever we are doing or whatever we are experiencing. We are not there completely and fully. There may be one activity that you really love doing, and that may be the one activity where you are completely present. But most of the time, we are not completely present with the things. As a result, we miss out on a lot of different things. So, for example, a Korean master once said that, if you meditate mindfully or if you develop the practice of mindfulness, you will get everything. And there were some college students, they were thinking everything, oh, maybe it's the spiritual way of getting a car and a house and all that. But eventually they realize it's not that. The life comes to you in a much more richer way. Complete experience is different. That's number one. But number two, and that's probably more relevant, is you're simply observing. What happens to us is there are a lot of times when we are not completely present and we don't have this habit of developing, we act impulsively. For example, it could be your relationship with food, it could be your relationship with exercise, or just simply your relationship with your spouse, with your children. We act impulsively, we act out. But when you become mindful, impulsiveness is what gets reduced, and you get more insights into your own mind and body. You are developing a better relationship with your mind and body. And as a result, your impulsiveness is what gets reduced. And when you get insights, then the action you take is more thoughtful. And that's what makes a big difference. Now, there is neuroscience now to support all these claims that I'm making. But just to summarize, I summarize the advantages of mindfulness. I can say, remember the word CREST, CREST. Okay, these are the benefits of developing a mindfulness habit. C is for concentration. You develop better concentration and focus. That's number one. R is relaxation. For example, when you're stressed out or anxious, there are certain meditations that help you to reduce whatever stress you're experiencing. So R is for relaxation. E is for equanimity, evenness of mind. If you have a habit of exploding with anger or getting extremely depressed by what seems to be not such a big deal to most people, those kinds of ups and downs can be reduced. And because of the insights you get into your own mind, you can be more even minded. So that's for E. And then S, basically what happens is you develop a spiritual attitude that if you want to go there, you can develop a spiritual attitude towards different things. And your short-term impulsive actions can be reduced. And T, the last one, is taming your mind, taming as in self-regulation, taming your actions. So these are the benefits of mindfulness. And the amazing part is that it's a simple habit that you develop, and you can develop a practice of mindfulness. It's a very simple idea, but if you actually implement it, what advantages you get are quite amazing. So these are the reasons for paying attention to when you take a shower.
Okay. Well, sorry, I was paying attention to other things. I wasn't present in the moment, so we're gonna have to start over. Just kidding.
Okay.
No, I think that's a really great way to kind of walk people through why this is helpful. So another aspect of mindfulness that I really want to talk about has to do with a blog article that I recently wrote, and I will put a link to it in the show notes for people that are listening. And it's about the idea of practicing mindful eating. This is something that you helped me with a long time ago, and through more reading and just more experimentation, what I've done to really help change my diet, because my diet was pretty atrocious for the vast majority of my life, and it didn't matter how much I exercised or how much I meditated or whatever. Food was always the component that was really driving my lack of energy and my lack of focus. And I started developing this practice where, rather than looking at something and judging it and saying, ooh, that looks good, or ooh, that looks bad, or, that's not going to taste good, I would think about, let's not worry about what it tastes like when I put it in my mouth. Let's think about, what is this going to make me feel like in an hour, in 2 hours, or 3 hours? And once I started making that judgment, that really started making an impact on the foods that I eat. And I don't do it 100% of the time, because sometimes I do want to indulge and I just want to enjoy my food, and that's fine. I'm human. I don't want to be a robot. But for the most part, when I look at something, I'll think, oh, wow, that cake doesn't even look good. Not because it's not going to taste good, but because I know how it's going to make me feel for the next 3 hours afterwards. So walk my audience through the idea of practicing mindfulness with eating, because eating and diet are a big component of what I'm trying to do. So walk them through that, and then how it can apply to, actually, because you had talked about neuroscience, and I'm really glad you brought that up, because I don't want people to think this is all airy fairy and all this new age stuff. Like, there's a lot of hard science that backs up the immense benefits of meditative practices and mindfulness. But what I want is a kind of a concrete example where somebody can say, well, that blog article is great, but how do I actually do it? How do I teach my brain and rewire my neurons to actually get myself to not want to eat something because I'll feel like crap?
So when it comes to eating, Zach, if you remember, what we did was, I think we had a cup of tea mindfully together. Is that what we did?
I don't remember what it was, but it was a very simple piece of food, like a cracker or a piece of bread. Whatever it was, I just remember having a small bite, and then you walk me through the whole process from there.
Yeah, okay. So I would ask your audience right now to either go and get simple cup of tea, or pick some food that's simple, not a very complex food, but some food that is simple, and take that food in mindfully. Let me take the example of a cup of tea. When you have the cup of tea in your hand, instead of just gulping the tea down, first look at the cup. And as I said, the 5 senses we have, we are going to make use of all 5 senses first. Look at it. Look at the way the light may be playing on top of the tea. So the eyesight, that's the first sense. Then smell it. The tea is going to smell something. It may be good or bad. It may be pleasing. So you pay attention to that. Then after smelling, listen to the tea. If you are going to take a gulp, listen to the tea. When you are touching the cup, it could be warm, and pay attention to the touch, the way your hand feels like on the cup. And then the taste, the sound and the taste both. Very slowly, very deliberately, pay attention to all 5 senses and record what these senses are telling you. And if you drink your tea just a few gulps in this mindful way, I would be very curious to know if your experience of drinking the tea changes or not. First of all, the experience will be much richer. And the second thing is, it slows you down. Start with simple foods such as a tea or a cracker or a grape or a raisin, and develop this practice of paying attention to each and every bite. I don't mean you have to eat your total meal like this every time, but just to develop the habit, just do a few bites like this. Then move on to complex foods, where when you're having lunch or dinner, instead of multitasking, stay with the food and pay attention to how that food tastes like, the five senses. Once you develop this habit of actually paying attention to your food, sometimes that in itself helps people to stop before they actually become too full. What happens with food, people who are either binge eating or people who are just eating because they're stressed out or because something is just available, let me just keep eating without thinking, is partly because they don't have a strong sensors for am I full or not, or like you said, thinking about what the food means to me. So before you start eating, if you can actually look at the food and think about why, I mean, am I hungry? That's number one. Number two is, am I too stressed out? Is that the reason why I am eating this food? So think about the food and the act of eating. And in your case, Zach, you described that now you think about how I'm going to feel like 2 hours from now, 3 hours from now. So what it has done is it has stopped your impulses of eating junk food or eating too much. Is that right?
Yeah, very much so. No, what it hasn't done is stop me from eating junk food ever.
Yeah.
Because I've had a horrible diet my entire life and I'm still fighting it. And I've made it very clear to everybody that, is interested in this program that I'm far from an expert and I'm just a guy trying to figure all this out. But I found that every single time, probably 100% of the time that I make a choice about the food I'm going to eat now, I think about why I'm making that choice. And even if I'm making the wrong choice, I'll be thinking, all right, well, I'm going to have a handful of Doritos. I know I'm going to feel like garbage and I know that I don't need them, but I'm going to make the choice anyway just because it's Friday night and I want to relax or I want to wind down. But I'm always making a choice out of awareness rather than impulsivity, which is a huge shift because when you don't make those impulsive choices, then I make the bad choices a lot less. And it's usually making that choice, knowing it's a bad one, and I want to make the bad choice anyway, just because I want to enjoy myself. But I'm never impulsively just grabbing something and not thinking about the implications.
And that is actually such a good point. And that's the difference between eating mindfully and controlling your impulses versus just going through a diet program. Because what happens is it is hard to keep these things on forever, just like you described. We are human beings. And mindfulness is about non-judgmental observing. So if you slip, sometimes when you are dieting and if you slip and you feel so guilty that you just give up that diet or you just said, what the heck, I'll just eat whatever I want. But that's not what the mindfulness practice is. It's also about allowing your humanness or allowing your follies, so to speak, as part of what you are doing. And it's a lifelong process. So that is one thing that comes up in mindfulness that's different than other programs. You don't
Right.
beat yourself up. And I like that Jack Cornfield, who's one of the meditation masters, he said that I'm perfect the way I am, but there is always room for improvement.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and I really like that sentence. I also want to tell you one other thing, Zach. There is a really good book by Thich Nhat Hanh, who is a Vietnamese monk, and he has a lot of centers actually in the US as well as in Europe. And he teaches mindfulness. And he has a book called Savor, Savor. And it is about mindful eating. And his co-author in that book, she is a scientist, and they actually did experiments on mindful eating, and the book summarizes those as well. So that will be a really good book for your audience to read, I believe. Yeah, and so that would be a good book. Also, in the area of food, sometimes it can be eating disorders. Not all eating disorders are really severe, but sometimes they can be in the range of eating disorder, like binge eating or anorexia is a very serious eating disorder. I would say for anorexia, mindful eating may not be that useful for various reasons, but when it comes to binge eating, mindful eating has actually been proven to be quite effective. And like you said, it doesn't mean your binges go away completely, but they get greatly reduced. And in fact, there are programs called MB Eat, MB as in mindfulness based, and EAT is just eat, my MB Eat, which is an 8-week program that one can do. Again, it's a program that was experimented with, and that is another way in which mindful eating has been quite well established as a form of stopping to binge. And like you said, in health and fitness, especially food and exercise, which are two big things about health and fitness, when you do it with the awareness, even when you are not eating properly or even when you don't exercise properly, do it with awareness that this is what's happening, not with judgment, but awareness, because that awareness itself changes your relationship with whatever it is, food or exercise. And that is, again, as I said, it's a neuroscience based statement I'm making. Basically, there has been a lot of research with this idea of mindfulness, not just in the area of eating, but a lot of different areas like stress reduction, as well as increased attention, increased willpower. And all these things are relevant for your relationship with food as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And just to give you an example, in UCLA, in Los Angeles itself, they have a research center called MARC, Mindful Awareness Research Center, where they offer mindful classes and they do research on mindfulness. Most major universities and major medical centers these days have mindfulness groups or some kind of mindfulness research, and some form of groups where patients can actually join these mindfulness groups in order to reduce stress. As well as some universities are now requiring doctors to do training in mindfulness. So mindfulness has become a really big deal in the medical community, as well as, believe it or not, in the business community, because of the focus, attention, and all these different aspects of mindfulness, as well as in the community of health and fitness. And that's where probably your podcast comes in the picture.
Well, it's funny because actually the podcast comes into the picture on the business side more than anything.
I see.
Because my sales pitch, and I'm sure everybody that has listened to the show before, they already know my pitch. But basically, what I'm trying to do is provide a tool set that people can use to become better at what they do for a living. Because there are all kinds of resources everywhere online. I mean, Google's a really big place, and you can learn everything you want about diet and exercise and all this other stuff. But for people specifically in our industry, I mean, as you know, we work in dark rooms for long days on end, high amounts of stress. We're very sedentary. And to go online and say, I want to get healthier is incredibly overwhelming because everywhere you look, you think, yeah, but these people don't live my life. They don't understand what it's like to be sedentary for 14 hours a day with no sunlight. That really has an immense effect on your health negatively. So I just decided that after I've spent the last 10 years trying to figure it out, I want to try and share what I've learned. And I'm still learning. I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm not a Zen master at, the health of being an editor. I'm still figuring it out every day, but I'm just trying to bring together all the different resources that I have to show people that it can be done and you can live a much healthier, more active lifestyle, even in our industry. And mindfulness is a big part of it. So it's really about the cognitive function that I'm trying to sell. And the side effect is you feel better and get fitter and eat better and all those other things. But really, if I'm going to put a pin on the wall and say this is the end goal, it's better cognitive function for everybody that's in front of their computer so they can do a better job and get better jobs and make more money and, have a better career. So that's really where I'm coming from. It is the business aspect of really making us focus better and have better concentration and just be, generally better people in the edit suite. So that's the idea.
So everything you talked about, these are all effects of mindfulness. For example, focus and concentration, but also cognitive functioning. There have been studies that have proven that the cognitive functioning, as in memory, as well as certain kinds of spatial recognition and all these kinds of things, get better when you have a regular practice of mindfulness meditations. And the other thing that it's interesting, you should say this, that ethics, when you are mindful, it is really hard to do things in a completely game playing and unethical way. Because part of being mindful is being aware, and believe it or not, that creates connections with other people. As in, you realize that whatever you are going through, in a way, it's universal, or we are all connected. That is the part of your brain that becomes more active. And as a result, to do unethical things becomes really difficult when you are mindful. But that may sound a little bit abstract. I would suggest for people in your profession and the lifestyle you suggested, I think that the two things that I would suggest to do is, before you start your day, if you can just sit for a few minutes, like 5 minutes, close your eyes. Now, this particular part is a little bit more formal practice of meditation, okay? So far, I was describing be mindful when you're eating, be mindful when you're taking a shower. That's just mindfulness practice. But if you want to develop a way to be mindful, the other way to do is to actually do meditations. And you don't have to do big 20-minute meditations or 2-hour meditations. Just for 5 minutes, sit on your chair with your feet firmly planted on the ground, your eyes closed, and in your mind, pay attention to your breathing. When your mind wanders around, bring it back to the breathing. Once you breathe a few times, then just say what I'm going to tell you, just say it in your mind, repeat it in your mind a few times. Breathe in, I smile. Breathe out, I am okay. Breathe in, I smile. Breathe out, I am okay. If you say this to yourself a few times and pay attention to what you're saying, okay, you have to be mindful of what you're saying. You have to be totally present with whatever you're saying. Just do that for a few minutes. Maybe on that particular day, you may be feeling very anxious, or you may be very stressed out, okay? Then add a sentence to whatever you're saying. May I let go of my anxiety, or may I achieve certain peace of mind, or may I live in peace. Repeat this to yourself. May I let go of my anxiety, and pay attention to your breathing. Just do this for a few minutes before you start your work. And you don't have to be outside in the sunlight. You may be inside the dark room for 14 hours. Every 2-3 hours, when you get a little bit of a time, for 2 minutes, just sit, close your eyes, and say a message or a sentence to yourself that makes sense to you. That's what, like, may some peace come to me, or may I do my job completely and totally. You pay attention to whatever you're saying in a fully present way. Just do it a few times. That way your stress will be reduced and you feel a little more centered. When you start your work, you will see that it will make a difference.
I mean, I can speak from personal experience. And as soon as you brought this up, it brought a smile to my face, because I remembered going through and doing this session after session years ago. And at first you're like, well, this is kind of goofy, right? Like, what is this? Like, I smile, I'm okay. But to go through this process is one of the most powerful drugs I have ever experienced, because you start doing, like, I would come into a session and I would be anxious or dealing with depression or whatever it is. And we would go through and do this practice amongst other meditation practices as well. And I would walk out at the end of the session and I would be like, wow, I feel like I've lost like 10 pounds, right? I just feel lighter. But then that transfers into your entire day. As you continue to do that practice more, it almost becomes second nature. And you just develop the sense of compassion and awareness, like you said. And it's interesting that you'd brought up the part about ethics, because I have found that I'm not even capable as a human being of doing something anymore that I know is going to intentionally hurt somebody or trick them, or, like, I mean, we're all human and we make mistakes. My intention is never to do something to hurt somebody or bring them down. It's always just about trying to improve myself. And it's almost to the point where if I do inadvertently do something to somebody else like that, I feel horrible about it. And a lot of that came from mindfulness meditation and just learning to be compassionate with yourself. Because once you start developing that, you do develop more of a connection to other human beings. And you realize that we're all just kind of one and the same. And again, like, some people are going to be like, oh, that sounds all, airy fairy new age, but
It's
It
not. It's
really
not.
isn't. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really amazing how this works and changes your brain.
Yeah. In fact, by now it is quite well established. I mean, I just want to throw a little bit of a jargon, but neuroscience wise, that the prefrontal cortex, which is the area behind the third eye on our forehead, that is the area of our brain that's called prefrontal cortex. And the thickness of that prefrontal cortex increases. And prefrontal cortex is basically instrumental in executive functioning. And right behind the prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain that's a highly emotional part of the brain. That's where emotions gets processed. So they see that prefrontal cortex thickness increases, especially for people who are long-term meditators. For them, it is quite a bit thicker. And they think, meaning the neuroscientists think, that because of that, there is better integration between the emotional part and the thinking part of our brain. But the good news is that it doesn't take 30 years of daily 2 hours of meditation practice to have that change in your brain. They have done experiments on college students where they ask them to do meditation practice just for 8 weeks, 20 minutes each day, and 5 days a week. Even then, they found that the brain structure actually changes. And the way it changes is, first of all, stress reduction, meaning the way you deal with your stress changes. And second thing is also this thing you talked about, the compassion, the connectedness with the world. And once you start feeling that, that in itself makes you feel less stressed out about whatever is going on in your life. And second thing is, it's hard to be unethical. So now, by the way, businesses such as Google and Apple, all these high-tech businesses now have mindfulness classes as part of their whatever they offer. And even Fortune 500 companies have started offering mindfulness classes. Their goal is, of course, not the spirituality and compassion per se, but their goal is self-regulation. Like what I was talking about, the impulsivity reduces, the focus and concentration becomes better, and you learn to self-regulate or train your mind from going and getting tempted with other things, or just going and doing self-destructive things. You stop doing that and you come back to whatever you have decided to do. You come back to it quicker and faster. So that self-regulation is part of the reason why businesses have started teaching mindfulness. So focus and concentration, self-regulation, and business ethics. And stress reduction, which is relevant for all of us, especially in your profession. And health of fitness partly comes from self-reduction, from reduced impulsivity, basically from focus and concentration.
Well, and I think the other thing that they're definitely trying to do, you're talking about all the positive benefits. What
Yeah.
they're trying to avoid is employee burnout, because when employees burn out, they're not useful and therefore the company makes less money. And I feel like burnout is something that is so rampant in the filmmaking industry right now. And it's
Yes.
because nobody cares. Nobody's looking at whether or not somebody's burning out. And I think a lot of that is because when you look at a company like Apple or Google or these big Fortune 500 companies, they have full-time employees. When you look at the filmmaking industry, I don't have a full-time job. I get hired onto a specific show for 4, 5, 6, 7 months at a time. So I'm just like a temporary employee. So there are no programs in place for anybody to learn how to avoid burnout, because they just think, well, you just need to push through and get through the stress and do the late nights. And then in 7 months, you're going to be on hiatus and you're going to get better. But what the producers and the post producers and all these people that are running these programs don't realize is that when people are done with the 7 months, they're so burned out, they can't recover. So they
Yeah.
just sit on the couch and stare at the television for a month or 2 months. They can't do anything. And then they're like, well, I have to work, so I'm going to go back to the next job. But guess what? I still feel like crap and I'm still burned out. I can't speak for everybody else that's out there. I'm speaking from my own experience. That's exactly the
Yes.
way that I lived my life for years, is I just think to myself, I just have to make it through. I just need to get through this job. I've got 1 month left. Then I'll get sleep. Then I'll eat better. And then as soon as that wall hits, and it's like this giant 100-foot tidal wave hits you as soon as that job is done, because now all the stress is removed, all of the tension is gone, but you don't know how to recover because your sympathetic nerve system is just completely in overdrive and and you've been totally burned out, so that
Absolutely.
you waste your hiatus. I've wasted entire 2-month hiatuses on the couch in front of the TV where I literally was not capable of standing up and taking the trash out to the curb. I could not do it because I was so exhausted. And that was the point that I was at when I found you. And obviously, that's completely changed my life because now I don't have those issues anymore. But I've been there. I've lived that life for years, and nobody's paying attention in this industry because they feel they don't have to.
Yeah. So, Zach, then in your experience now, how have you used mindfulness to get over this burnt out feeling or to stop from being on this unhealthy hiatus for 2 months?
Basically, I mean, there's a lot of different things that I've done, and that's what the website is all about and the program is all about. It's not just one thing. If I were to say, well, the reason that I can do this is because of mindfulness or because of meditation, that's a component of the entire process. But as far as this specific topic is concerned, I've basically gotten myself to the point where I cannot go to sleep until I spent at least 15 to 30 minutes doing some form of winding down, whether it's doing a full meditation practice. I'm also doing heart math biofeedback now, which is, assuming that's something that you're familiar with, where I'm actually getting feedback about my heart rate variability, which is telling me whether I have high anxiety, low anxiety, and you're getting feedback telling you, oh, well, I need to slow down my breathing more, or I need to focus more. And I do something like that. Or I also have something that's called the bulletproof sleep mat, which is basically an acupuncture mat that you lay on for 15 to 20 minutes or even longer than that if you want. And it's actually helping you release endorphins so you can sleep better. So I'm now at the point where I just cannot turn off my computer or put my book down or whatever it is and just go to sleep. The reason that I get such high quality deep sleep is because I spend at least 15 to 30 minutes right before my head hits the pillow doing some form of meditation every single day. There's a day or two here and there where I'm like, I'm just too tired. I'm going to be fine. I'm just going to lay down and go to sleep. And my sleep is horrible. And I have the numbers to prove it. Like, I have 2 different ways that I track my sleep every night with the Fitbit and with the Sleep Cycle alarm clock app. And I wake up in the morning and my sleep patterns are awful. And I'm like, all right, well, that just tells me that that's because I skipped my meditation for the night. So that's how I've applied it.
Okay, so you said some form of meditation. And one thing that people in your industry could do is just exactly what you said. Before sleeping, just leave 10 to 15 minutes to sit maybe by your bedside. I would suggest not actually sitting in the bed itself, but maybe if possible, sit on the side of the bed, close your eyes and just pay attention to your breathing, and then pay attention to your different body sensations just for a few minutes, like 10-15 minutes. You can start paying attention to your fingertips, and then you can start paying attention to your toes, and then slowly start paying attention to your shoulders and your back, and just pay attention to all the muscular movements or temperature changes that you're feeling there, and breathe in and breathe out. And then end the meditation by again saying, breathe in, I smile, breathe out, I'm okay. And then if you go to bed, you will see that the quality of your sleep immensely improves. And sleep, as you know, is such a big part of recovery of any sort, like mentally as well as physically. Sleep is a very important component. But also, all throughout the day, take just 2 minutes. Maybe when you take a cup of coffee, or maybe when you are doing some chore, pay attention to it totally and mindfully, and breathe in and breathe out. And say something to yourself that you totally pay attention to. Just keep doing it, because your system needs a break. In the whole day, if your system doesn't get any break and if you just sleep like that, you are going to get affected. Like you said, your sympathetic nervous system is going to go haywire. And so you have to train yourself to just let go of all the tension. And being mindful at that time has a long-term benefit of reduce impulsivity. And again, coming back to eating, because part of what you were wondering about is how to stop eating junk food or how to have more healthy food. It's also about impulsivity or not having insights into your own body and mind. I am going to suggest a book, Zach, if people are interested in mindfulness itself. There is a book called Mindfulness in Plain English. I'll give you the link to this book. So that's the other book if people are interested in mindfulness. And I also want to say I have very short, like 2-3 minute tutorials, 9 tutorials on mindfulness that I have put on YouTube. I'll give you a link to that also for those who want to learn everything they want to know about mindfulness in just a few minutes, like 15 minutes total. They can go and listen to those tutorials. And in terms of doing mindfulness meditations, these YouTube tutorials also have 4 mindfulness meditations included. And I also have a suggested few weeks of mindfulness practice if somebody is serious about actually developing a practice of mindfulness. So all these different resources are available, and I'll give you links to all these different resources so your audience can be all well prepared in terms of using mindfulness. But even before reading or listening or anything, as I suggested, just in your daily life, pay attention to your shower for a few minutes, 2-3 minutes. Pay attention to what you're eating, a few bites at a time. Pay attention to why you are eating or how it is going before you actually start eating. Get insights into your own body and mind before you eat. Slow down. And then all throughout the day, just take 2-3 minutes, just 2-3 times when you sit, attend to your breathing and say a sentence to yourself as you breathe in and breathe out. If you do just that, you will see a big difference.
One thing that I wanted to add, this is kind of going backwards a little bit, but you brought up the idea of mindful eating again.
Yeah.
And I decided to experiment with this a little bit, and I did exactly the opposite of what you had mentioned, because you had said, try something very simple like a cracker or a grape or a raisin, right?
Mhm.
I decided to try it with chocolate cake and Coca-Cola and just the worst things I possibly could. And what I found is that was one of the most profound experiences, because once I was mindful eating something that was just absolutely horrible for me, I didn't want it anymore. So
Yeah.
the biggest thing that I get from people a lot when I go out to dinner or lunch with friends or something, and they'll order a Coke or fries or whatever, and they'll see me order something pretty healthy. And like, for example, a couple of months ago, I went out to lunch with all my colleagues and my meal just came with fries. I didn't even know it. So I just grabbed the fries, the whole handful, and I just put it on like another small plate and pushed it away. And they're like, wow, you've got really strong willpower. And what they don't understand is that it has nothing to do with willpower. I've literally trained my brain to the point where I don't even want it. So I'm not telling myself, oh, I really want that Coca-Cola, but I'm not going to order it today. Or I really don't want that cake or those fries. I need to be strong. Through the process of mindfulness, I've basically rewired my brain to the point where just the mere thought of having a Coca-Cola and fries kind of makes me want to vomit. I mean, literally, it does. Like,
Yes.
it makes me sick to even think about it. And like one time, it must have been maybe 5-6 months ago, my wife or somebody had ordered a Coke and there's a little bit left. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to try this. I'm going to see, does this still taste good? And I had to spit it out. It was that disgusting to me. I spit it out and I couldn't swallow it. People are going to think, oh, well, that's because you're a health person. I was addicted to Mountain Dew for almost a decade. And I don't think there's anything worse for the human body than Mountain Dew. And I was literally having at least 5 or 6 of them a day. So this is not coming from a place of always being healthy, but I've literally transformed myself to the point where just the mere thought of putting that into my system, I have to spit it out because it's so disgusting.
No, that's a great example. I said start with simple foods and move on to complex food. But what you just described actually is a great way to get insights. You got insights into when you eat something bad, what it means to you mentally. Generally speaking, we don't even pay attention, right? We just focus on the pleasant experience of that moment and that's it. So we just put it in our body. But if you do it mindfully, like when you are eating a chocolate cake or Coke or whatever it is that you don't want to eat, one time just eat it mindfully and pay attention to how you actually find it repulsive, as in how, in fact, it's not a good thing for your body. How does your body feel in the beginning, in the middle, and then when you're too full? Pay attention to it. It's about awareness. Again, observing. Awareness is not just being aware, but it also you get used to observing yourself. And I think that's a very big shift in terms of changing any type of habit, that you become aware and you start observing yourself. You get insights into why it is bad for you. And that's the process you described. So, yes, I would say if that works for you, it probably would work for a lot of people too. And what you said about willpower, by the way, it's also, they also have done experiments. There is a book, in fact, I don't remember the name of the book, but there's a book about willpower and mindfulness, how the willpower increases in the neurological way. They have done neuroimaging studies. Anything you can think of, they have done studies of neuroimaging type of studies of that using mindfulness technique. It's not a new age kind of idea anymore. Just to give you one example, I think one of the big ways in which mindfulness came to the US was about 30, 40 years ago, when a few people in the Peace Corps who went to Thailand and India, and they studied meditations, and they actually lived there in the forests and monasteries for 2, 3 years. And when they came back, one of them, John Kabat-Zinn, he in fact came up with an 8-week secular mindfulness program for stress reduction. First thing he did was he implemented it in the University of Massachusetts hospital, and he did studies or experiments on if it really reduced the stress or not. And he had great success. And that's how all the medical centers slowly started doing these studies, and they implemented mindfulness-based stress reduction programs. And then after that, the Dalai Lama, Tibetan guru, once he started coming to the West, his big thing was everything that came through religion, through Tibetan Buddhism, he wanted to test it scientifically. So he started having these conferences of monks and scientists, really big name neuroscientists, psychologists, and all different kinds of scientists together to test all these claims of mindfulness meditations. So every year, or now every couple of years, there is still a big conference where all these claims are tested, scientifically speaking. So that's the reason why most universities and hospitals have been using mindfulness as part of their practice. So it is not a new age, airy-fairy stuff at all. It's actually quite well established in the scientific community.
Well, what I find funny all the time when people talk about, oh, that's hippie stuff or it's new age or whatnot, the vast majority of information that people are actually living off of and taking as far as diet or exercise, all that stuff has only existed for 40 or 50 years. And frankly, most of it is really unhealthy and it's bad information. And the quote unquote new age stuff has existed for thousands of years. So I think it's very interesting when people will say, oh, that's the new age stuff. It's like, well, actually, the stuff I'm practicing has been around for at least 5,000 years. And the stuff that you're doing has been around for like 30 years. So which one is really new age?
Yeah, but I think, yes, no, you're right. But 5,000 years, that's true. But I think it is also important to actually perform studies and to find some evidence, because then you know that there was a reason why it has stayed for 5,000 years. And having scientific evidence does satisfy some type of people, because sometimes, there could be some myths that have existed for all these years. But I really believe in scientific studies that prove old wisdom. I think that's the best combination. And mindfulness is one of those where both these things have come together. Science and ancient practices have come together. And it has been quite a movement, I would say, these days.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest reason that I've been such a proponent of the Akasha Center and have gone back all these years, is that if it were just Eastern medicine and or all holistic, and they were saying, well, you just need to take rosemary and thyme to cure your depression, I'd be a little skeptical. But I'm equally as skeptical of the Western medical system that says, well, you're having all these problems, take this pill and you'll be fine. But I find that when you combine the two, you have the Eastern medicine, the Western medicine, and you're combining all of these ideas that have been around for thousands of years, but combining them with the Western science that's all very modern, that I feel is just kind of an unbeatable combination. That's the way that my brain works too, where I want to do all of the established things that have been around for thousands of years, but I like having all of the data and the Western scientific knowledge to just back it up so I know that it's actually working and it's not just some crazy idea.
Yes.
So before we go, we're running out of time, but I want you to talk a little bit about the specifics of your app, how it can work for people in my industry, and where they can go to find out more about your practice and the app as well.
Okay, so the app is called To Meditate, number two, and Meditate. It will be launched soon on all different devices, and there'll be a website also. The thing about this app is it's 2 minutes from anytime, anywhere. That is basically the idea. 2 minutes, there are 2 minute meditations as well as 20-minute meditations. And all these meditations are global meditations. What that means is when you go on the app, you can see a globe and you will see all other people who are meditating all over the world. And then you start listening to the meditation. Everybody is listening to the same meditation at the same time. And the 2 minute meditations is something that may be useful for people who are wannabe meditators, but do not have enough time to spend 20 minutes or 40 minutes or whatever for meditating. So I suggest they can actually meditate just for 2 minutes by get on their iPhone, get on the app, and immediately, anytime, anywhere, either 2 minute or 20-minute meditation will be available, guided meditation to listen to. You can also form your friendship groups. If you don't want to do it the global group, you can form your own groups of 5-6 people. The way you form groups on Facebook or wherever, you can form a friendship group, and then you can choose a meditation and you can all listen to the same meditation from your own house or offices or wherever it is. And then there is a chatting facility that you can chat with each other about your experience of the meditation. So that's basically what the app is. It's global meditations, but available anytime, anywhere, as well as forming your own buddy circles. And I will give you the link. There is a launching page. If any of your audience, if they're interested, they can go on this page and give their email, and I will send them updates when it is ready to be launched. The launching page is tomeditatetogether.com. 2 as in number 2, meditatetogether.com.
I can assure you that this will instantly become a required portion of the Fitness in Post challenge groups, because there are so many excuses for why people can't do things, but there is no excuse on the planet for why you cannot hit a button on your iPhone and meditate for 2 minutes. There's just nothing. So this is going to be a required part of my program once it's out, because I do an entire 2-week unit in my challenge groups about meditation and yoga and mindfulness and breathing techniques and heart math and all these different techniques that you can use to lower stress levels. But having this component is great, because then I can just say to people every day for 2 weeks, just go on your app and do 2 minutes a day and see what a difference it can make. So this is an instant classic for the Fitness in Post program.
That's great. It will be another month and you will all have access. It's a free app, by the way. I believe that I would like to create a global meditation community, free of charge. And that's my labor of love. So I hope you all benefit from it. And CREST, remember, the benefits of mindfulness is CREST, CREST.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, and thank you for all the benefits that I've derived from knowing you over the last decade or so. And I'm hoping that more people can find your practices and your teachings, and it can help them as well. So thank you very much. Thank you for listening to episode 26 of the Optimize Yourself podcast. To access the various links and resources mentioned in this episode, please visit optimizeyourself.me/episode 26. If this interview inspired you to take action, I invite you to download my ultimate guide to optimizing your creativity, which contains plenty of simple action steps that you can take to prioritize your well-being and start sleeping better, eating better, and managing stress like a Zen monk. Because you can't be creative all day if you're constantly burned out. To download this guide 100% free, all you have to do is visit optimizeyourself.me/ultimate guide, and I'll send it to your inbox immediately. Before closing today, I just want to take a last quick second to remind you that there are only a few days left to participate in my giveaway for a TopoMat, a human charger device, a 1-hour Skype coaching session with me, or a 1-month supply of my new favorite cognitive enhancement supplement, Qualia. The contest ends December 1st, and all it requires is for you to take 2 minutes to leave an honest review for this podcast in iTunes. That's it. To learn more and participate, just go to optimizeyourself.me/win. Thank you for listening. Be well. This episode of the Optimize Yourself podcast was made possible by ErgoDriven, the makers of the TopoMat and Topo Mini, my #1 recommendations for anyone interested in moving more at their height-adjustable workstation. Listen, standing desks are only great if you're standing well. Otherwise, you're constantly fighting fatigue and chronic pain. Not like any other anti-fatigue mat, the Topo is scientifically proven to help you move more throughout the day, which helps reduce discomfort and also increase your focus and productivity. My friends at ErgoDriven did extensive testing and compared their product to the top-of-the-line floor mats, and they found the Topo drove almost 2.5 more moves per minute with 270% more foot motion. Now, what this simply means is that the Topo users move more. I'm standing on one as I read this, and I don't go to a single job without it. And if you're smaller and you're concerned the Topo mat is too big, or you simply don't have the floor space, there's a Topo Mini for that. To learn more, visit optimizeyourself.me/topo. That's TOPO. This episode of the Optimize Yourself podcast was made possible by the Human Charger, a revolutionary new light therapy device made specifically for people who spend long days in the dark and don't get enough sunlight, i.e. you and me. It's not a light box. It's smaller than an iPod Nano, and it fits right in your pocket. Now, no different than listening to music, all you have to do is simply put in the earbuds for 12 minutes a day to receive your daily recommended dosage of UV-free white light. This light stimulates the photosensitive receptors in your brain, which then affects your neurochemistry via neurotransmitters such as serotonin, dopamine, and noradrenaline. Doing so can drastically increase your energy, improve your mood, and increase mental alertness and focus. This device has literally changed my life, and I use it every morning without fail. To learn more, visit optimizeyourself.me/humancharger and use the code OPTIMIZE to get 20% off your order.